We're at 5. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call. Dave Evans. Here. Claire Parson.
Here.
Darren Rios. Not here. Deb Stacy.
Here.
John Timmerman. Here.
Okay. Allen Township Zoning Commission, May 9th, 2024. Attendance: Dave Evans, Claire Parton, Darren Rios, Deb Stacy, John Timmerman. Deb Stacy, Allen Township Zoning Commission Secretary, read the May 2nd, 2024 minutes. Motion 24-04-23M. John Timmerman moved to approve the Allen Township Zoning Commission minutes from the May 2nd, 2024 meeting. Claire Parton moved to second the motion. The motion passed. The Allen Township Zoning Commission reviewed solar and wind energy, setbacks, screening, drainage, decommission plans, energy output, and definitions were discussed. John Timmerman, Allen Township Zoning Commission Chairman, asked for input from guests several times during the meeting. Numerous responses were given back to the commission. The next zoning commission meeting will be on May 13th at 5 o'clock. Topics will include adult entertainment, general exceptions, administration, and enforcement of zoning. Motion 24-04-24M. Claire Parton moved to adjourn the meeting. Dave Evans seconded the motion. Motion passed.
I move to accept the meeting minutes as read.
Okay, so that's John. Can we have a second? Dave's our second, and everyone say yes?
Yes.
Yes. Motion passed.
You're digging through papers. You got
Yes, I have
stuff.
something for you.
All right. Ponds?
Yes.
All right.
This is the zoning amendment that Washington Township just did for their, the ponds.
Thank you.
It has some definitions, it has, it removed lake completely, they don't have those anymore. We probably shouldn't have lakes, we shouldn't be able to, we shouldn't be trying to regulate lakes, that gets kind of confusing.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, here's Matt. So. I'll put this over there for him. I don't know if you want to do this now, or if you want to wait and do it at a different day, if you want to just dive into the stuff we'd already planned to do, or it's up to you guys. You just haven't, since you haven't had a chance to review it, thought maybe we could do it next time, so you'll have a chance to read through it, get an idea about it.
That's fine.
I also got an email from a resident who was at the last meeting with some suggested changes that or some suggested things about the site amount of kilowatt and stuff like that. So if you guys want to read through that, it's just, I'm handing it off to you because he,
Yeah, you. Just have the one copy?
yeah, I thought I made copies, but I can't find them in here, that's why I was shuffling so much.
Sure, we can read it. Hey Cindy, this is Chris Goodwin with the email follow-up that you requested to my question at the previous Allen Township Zoning Commission meeting.
Just to clarify at the last meeting, he was asking a bunch of questions, and I said, why don't you send it in an email, because it got kind of confusing when we were talking back and forth, so this is why we sent that.
Regarding the kilowatt limit to accessory use solar. I believe that during the meeting, the accessory use was deemed to be 15 kilowatts with a footprint limit of 1,000 square feet. I believe that it would be in the best interest to raise that limit to 25 kilowatts. To help get a better understanding of kilowatt usage, we got a free estimate through Tesla for solar roof panels. According to their estimate, we would need approximately just under 12 kilowatts worth of solar panels to accommodate our housing needs. Based on these estimates alone, a large house would need close to, if not exceeding, the 15 kilowatt limit, let alone other external factors such as sheds, pond, pool, utilities, etc. In addition, as electric cars become more mainstream, these may be another factor into the equation. After a quick Google search, I am seeing that you need approximately 2 to 5 kilowatts per car for charging. I think it might be a good idea to allow residents to fully utilize the land usage restriction for their solar needs, which, assuming 37.5 watts per square foot, which is the same estimate that One Energy is using for its future 25.8 megawatt 30-acre solar field, would come out to a bit over 25 kilowatts. Okay. Additionally, I know the decibel limitations were placed on wind use, but I don't remember any similar limitations for solar. I have seen a number of videos of people angry about the loud, constant humming that can come from large solar arrays. It may be a good idea to implement the same decibel restrictions to solar if we haven't already. On a final note, Cindy Wisner informed me that when I approached you,
You don't really have to read that
Yep.
part if you don't want to.
yep, I'm gonna leave
Can't
that part
afford
out. No, I'll leave that part out. So it's really about the the total kilowatts and the decibel levels. So, does anybody have any thoughts towards that? Let's start with the total kilowatts. I mean, if we're allowing space for 25 kilowatts, I don't know that I necessarily have an objection to limit it, like,
You have 1,000 square feet now.
and he's saying that
Will
based on,
25 fit on there?
that's what he said, just over,
Oh, okay.
based on what One Energy is proposing for their solar field.
Okay.
Is that One Energy or Whirlpool?
He says
It's-
One Energy. I don't
He
know.
says One Energy. It's my understanding it's One Energy for Whirlpool, but
I said no.
yes, I think they're one and the same, but I don't know the ownership of it. I'm gonna trust his math on that for right now, because it's gonna convert from acres to square feet, and I don't remember the number, so.
Isn't it 4,480?
All right.
4,890 square feet in an acre.
43,000.
560.
Okay.
Okay.
We currently had 15 is what you were talking about before.
That's what I thought, 15, but then I also.
Even 25 is quite a lot lower than what the maximum amount is before it goes to the power sighting board, which is 50 megawatts for solar. Yeah. Megawatts.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
My math came out to 19.7, so it'd be 20 kilowatts. But
Did we have two different wattages? One, was it different for accessory versus non-accessory?
Yes, non-accessory
It
was
was 25
25 already.
kilowatts.
right, and so he's saying to move it up to be the same. And 25 is still a low number,
Right.
and I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Okay, so they're both gonna be 25, accessory and non-accessory.
Are we gonna, in the 1,000 square feet will still work?
I mean, at 1,000 square feet, I come out to right at 20 kilowatts, but as efficiencies get better over time, it'll still be close.
Okay, I just don't want us to have two things that aren't compatible so that, you know, we're kind of precluding people from going to the maximum that we're allowed. So,
Well, I guess I'll double check the square foot per acre then. Maybe not. Internet signal in here.
mhm.
I'm not getting the square foot per acre, so,
We can always come back.
Pretty sure it's 43,560.
yeah,
43,000.
that's what I was
If
using.
you, if you need to do a little more crunching, we can,
We can come back to it, I
Thursday.
guess.
Mhm.
As far as decibel level, I mean, I didn't think decibel level would be an issue with solar, and it never crossed my mind.
It was a
But-
big issue when we were at the power sighting board for those large fields up in Washington and Cass Township. However, that's where the guy told me that the amount that it gives off is something that somebody my age wouldn't even hear. So
Right.
I'm thinking it's not as
Rude.
loud. What?
Yeah,
It
so
was a little
rude.
bit, yeah. We're like, you know, he goes, well, somebody your age probably wouldn't even hear it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that they're, except that it's the issue of the constancy of the hum. So, I think they're like at 5. I think they said in their, and I forgot to pull this, so I apologize. I do have that back in our office, and I'll look at it for what the agreed terms were that we gave to the power sighting board with the company, all their engineers and the county and the township all agreed on what would be acceptable levels. And for some reason, I'm thinking it's about 5. It's really low,
Okay,
is what it is, but I still would, I'll double check.
okay.
So little kids shouldn't live near them, because they can hear them then.
I wouldn't know what's happening in that.
And it's more than just audible sound. Sometimes inaudible sound will give you health impacts
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, they have the pretty big, we literally had this much information for all the reports of the different areas, but, you know, it's the stuff that the power sighting board looks at for the larger ones. And if they find it at acceptable levels, I think it makes sense that use them as a guideline for the
Sure.
acceptable levels. For the huge ones, that you would find it acceptable levels for the small ones. At least then you can support your decision for what the rationale is.
Couple of notes I made after the meeting, just going through my head. Density, we said 1 per mile as far as I gotta figure it out again. non-accessory use on wind and solar. Is that one per mile from wind turbine to wind turbine and solar to solar, or do they
Lot line to
cross?
lot line.
Lot line to lot line, do they cross-reference,
Oh, can I have a wind and solar together and,
or do they have to be 1 mile apart?
I see what you're saying. Well, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Should be 1 mile apart, otherwise they're gonna be practically on top of each other.
Well, is that, I understand the 1 mile, like if you had solar here, and you
Right.
wanted 1 mile to it, but what if you had solar and then right next to it, wind? Should it still be a 1 mile apart from, I don't even know the way to phrase that. And
But we're not contemplating moving the 1 mile to be less.
Right.
We're asking if the 1 mile applies whether it's solar or wind to each other. Because I don't know that that's how you currently have it.
I don't think that's how it's worded currently.
Yeah, right now it's kind of worded that it's a mile between each solar, and
Right.
a mile between each
Wind,
wind, but not between any kind of
green energy.
piece.
Yeah,
Is that green, is that what they call it?
I don't know.
I don't know what you call it. It's up to you guys. Do you want to see if we can find some way to,
I'd be okay with finding
Look at
some
that.
way to,
do you guys think that's too restrictive? Or gonna be difficult to
No.
follow?
Should we do a little bit of research so we have
that's
some
fine too.
backup?
That's fine,
I would like to have backup.
okay.
But get them real close and the drop fall off and break the solar, oh well.
Solar to wind or wind to wind, solar to solar.
I think on accessory solar, we said it must be on site. I just wanted to verify that we said on accessory wind, it must be on site as well.
Okay, I will double check. I did add a section, a paragraph. I'm most of the way through getting these notes that we took and talked about pounded into the same form that we have used for other things. I added a section that says, accessory solar, mounted on a building, what do you call it? That it's preferable.
Okay,
Okay.
So, I mean, there are a few things that I didn't know. I didn't have any note on what we were doing. I put those in highlighted yellow, so when we bring it, we'll talk about those. You can tell me to leave it, change it, or
okay.
Okay.
dispose of it completely.
One more note, for solar, is the area, the 1,000 square feet, is that the area of ground it's sitting on, or is that the surface area of the panels? Because if you just say of the panels, then I don't know why you would do it, but you could space
Spread them all over.
over 100 acres. Would be not the best way to do it, but you could do that if that's, so. And do we care?
If I'm looking, there was part E where initially Washington Township had shall not exceed a half acre in size, and then we pushed it down, so that tells me it was talking about actual property
Property area.
location and not
Yep.
actual panels. So I think that's kind
Just
of
stick with
more,
that.
I think that's more of the intent
Okay,
that we were
So
discussing.
we'll make sure it says 1,000 square feet.
Of property or
Property.
land, whatever. I
You may
mean,
want to say contiguous.
contiguous.
what is that term?
Inside
But-
that side.
So you don't
So
have 10 different spots, you know.
Okay,
that
Contiguous
add
is
up
all
to
together, right?
Yeah.
Contiguous means it's all touching.
yeah.
one square.
We
Or
have,
they could be little diamonds that spread all the way across there, and then tip to tip, but if they want to get that creative.
Solar panels
at 30 feet, 65 decibels.
How many?
At 30 feet away is 65.
How big,
Really?
what's the, does it give anything as to how much solar panel?
It doesn't give that.
It doesn't give
There's
anything.
a couple places where it says that.
What is it, a home?
Or 10 meters.
I think it's just a hum. I mean, that's based on the email, it sounds like a hum.
What's the source that she's looking at?
Oh,
What's
There's
the,
a Cypress Creek Renewables and another one that says the same exact thing. Solar Choice.
does it hurt anything just to put it at the property line again? The 40, I think we said 40 decibels at the
Well-
property line?
No. We'll take that number there and think about it. We'll find what the solar or power sighting board says, and then we'll kind of come up with a number. 65 seems super low. It's
It
not
does,
the
it
kind of
does.
number that we were discussing at the power sighting board at all. So I was,
Tiffin Avenue's 75 decibels.
but the traffic,
Yeah, from about 50 feet away. We had a study for one of the car washes. The neighbors were concerned how loud the car wash would be.
oh,
We had a little sound study.
the thing I added was roof/structure mounted solar energy systems are the preferred type of accessory system. Doesn't mean they have to do it, at least then they know that you're gonna give it a little bit better look at.
Cindy, I brought this up to you before, but I'm gonna bring it up again. The very first section 1500 in here says whenever any provision of this resolution imposes more stringent requirements, regulations, restrictions, or limitations than are imposed or required by the provisions of any other law or resolution, then the provisions of this resolution shall govern. And then whenever the provisions of any other law or resolution impose more stringent requirements than are imposed or required by this resolution, then the provisions of such resolution shall govern.
Right.
Based on that, why can't we have rules that are more stringent than the Senate Bill 52?
Because you're still a creature of statute, and you can only do what you have the authority to do. You are having more stringent than Senate Bill 52 by going down to kilowatts instead of megawatts.
But
You're limiting them at,
I thought you implied that we would not be able to regulate things that are above, wind above 5 megawatts.
you cannot.
Okay.
Because
The state trumps,
the state would,
the state trumps these.
you don't have the authority to even regulate it, not
Okay,
create something that's different than theirs.
okay.
If you have the ability to play in that playground, then you can be more stringent than they are.
So whose rules would we be allowed to be more stringent then?
Then, in what?
Based on that section I read, are we allowed to be more stringent than the county level?
No, depends.
Okay,
For example, the state statute says, like a non-conforming use, if it's not used within, as the non-conforming use for 2 years, it reverts. You could give them 3, 4, or 5 years, but they would be more stringent. So I can't give you the overall thing. You gotta kind of take it each kind of thing at a time and
okay,
discuss it and work it through, because there's a lot of moving parts on that. I wish I could just say, yeah, that's how it works. It's not.
Okay. okay.
But you still are creatures of statute, and townships, and by definition, the children of townships, the commissions, are only given the authority that a statute gives you. And Senate Bill 52 gave you the authority to regulate up to 5 megawatts
Okay.
and up to 50. Anything above that, you don't have the ability to
Okay.
do.
That's fine. I just, when I read it, I'm like, kind of implied that you're allowed to be more stringent than,
You are sometimes, and
Okay.
you can be less stringent sometimes,
right,
depending on if it's a benefit or a detriment. And you can give them benefit where the state would give them, you can give more benefit than the state does, which makes you in the double negative or less stringent. See what I'm
Less
saying?
less restrictive.
Yeah,
that's fine. I just wanted to bring it up one more time for clarity.
there is no clarity on it.
Okay, that's a fair answer.
We see it all the time with covenants and restrictions. The city will issue a permit for a fence, the covenants and restrictions that they agreed to when they purchased the houses are not allowed to have a fence. We say a lot can be 10,000 square feet. The health department says you have to have a minimum of 2 acres. So in that case, they have to have 2 acres. That, the bigger lot is actually more restrictive. So you see it like that all the time. And you can set standards where you have control less or more than what the state does with their over 50 or over 5. But I think you have to, you should show some reason why it's, you know, different than kind of what experts have said.
I haven't always considered legislature experts on
I know,
anything.
that was very flattering to the state legislature. I apologize.
All right. Do we have, are we moving on then to adult entertainment?
Okay, we can do that.
Yep.
Should I leave the girls in?
So I've got a question before we, I don't know if we're gonna take the time to read through this or what, but it was my understanding that we could, basically state that there would not be adult entertainment permitted in the township. And then when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing things like a license, like things that you have to adhere to license this, license required. So, and the issuance of a license. So my question is, before we wade through all this license information, do we have the option of saying that there is no permitted use, or do you specify what district it could if?
I wish I knew, I can't find, and I don't seem to have a copy of what Allen Township adopted, because they currently have this adopted. And I would like to take what they have and plop it directly in here. But I'm not the one who did it. Somebody else in our office did many years ago, and he's not in our office anymore. So I don't really know. Open any of this? No, I can't get in here.
It would be nice if that's been done by the township already, that we could just insert that and say, it's already been addressed, here it is.
I wonder if Mark has access to it. I think he has it, because it's a lot of stuff that he can't.
Do we have any idea how long ago that may have happened?
For a while.
I'm guessing
It was Casey.
it was Casey, Bill Honka was still director. So before 13,
I'd say,
8 or 9 maybe,
9, 10.
9, 10, somewhere in there. Anywhere between 2005 and 2012.
Okay.
Trying to remember when, I think Casey left our office in 12. So, would have been a while before that. But when did the Lions Den open?
Well,
Because it was like within months of that.
was that what propelled this last zoning resolution 22 years ago?
Which is in 2002.
Yeah, it was the lion's den. Yeah.
That was the last thing, and the time before it was the contaminated soil,
Yeah.
right there by Pilot.
This 2002 lineup, your recollection?
No,
Nope.
No?
I wasn't at regional planning, and I remember I was at regional planning when they went through the process. I started in '05,
Was it shortly after you got there?
man, I don't know.
I would think that it should be somewhere.
Yeah, it should be. I'm sure he's gonna have to go digging for it. And I think I might be able to access computer stuff that Casey might have done back when he was here. I'm not sure if it's still around, but maybe I can find his. Do you want to put this off till next time? Till I can see if we don't have to really even wade into it? and
It'd be
then-
nice if we didn't have to spend an hour and a half and then find out, like,
Did
you
it-
bring
yeah.
something in, it's
Right.
a 5
Now,
minute.
you
deal.
really wanted to read that, Dave.
Not really.
Yes, you did.
I kept looking around, make sure that, should we stuck a PG sign on the door?
Okay,
Was
this is gonna be a
easy.
short meeting, we opted
Oh, that
not to
worked out
go,
well.
not to
Okay.
go into ponds, not to go into adult
We
entertainment.
can always do the ponds now if we're not doing adult entertainment.
Do we wanna go and do general exceptions then? Or do you wanna do ponds?
All we gotta do is continue
You know,
to chat to these all-
That's not terribly long. We could read that out loud, the ponds.
On that,
This short one she just gave you today.
Are you thinking pond?
Yeah,
Okay,
let's
let's just do it and
let's
be
hit
done
ponds.
since that's part of general, I don't even remember what the title of that was, general
Provisions.
provisions. Okay,
go for it.
Yep.
Article 12, General Provisions, Section 20, now reads, artificial ponds. Artificial ponds may be permitted in all use districts with review of the zoning commission and zoning inspector. A, all artificial ponds shall comply with all requirements of this resolution, including, but not limited to, setback and yard requirements from main structures. B, all artificial ponds may not exceed 3 acres in surface area size with a limit of 1 pond per parcel. C, in determining compliance with setbacks and yard requirements, the measurements shall be made as follows. A, bring ground ponds or portions thereof from the edge of the pond bank nearest the road right-of-way or lot line to the road right-of-way or lot line. B, for above ground ponds or portions thereof from the lowest point of on the outside of any embankment closest, on the outside of any embankment nearest the road right-of-way or lot line to the road right-of-way or lot line.
I don't understand that language. Do you?
How can you have an above ground?
From the lowest
They're the
point
ones that have the
outside.
little, look like little,
Like the reservoir.
reservoirs.
Oh,
I don't get this nearest road right-of-way or lot line to the road right-of-way or lot line. What does that mean?
Okay, you got lots of winds and the water's going against the edges and the edges of the thing washes away and then you got water across the road.
But I think this is only, what we're talking about is how we do the initial measuring to see where it's gonna get put. From the edge of the pond bank nearest the road right-of-way or lot line. To the road right-of-way or lot line.
To which road right-of-way? Which,
I think what it's trying to say is to the closest road right away or lot line, but I don't know why they have to specify
Yeah.
it twice like that.
Did Jake have any part of this?
He wrote this, I didn't write it.
Okay. Well, he's traumatized by the way that contentious pond went down.
Yeah, we're not even close yet to being done, so. Slap
Well,
it. Tell him to get
no,
back up.
the one on,
Oh, and Portage Township.
yeah, where the property owners insisted on measuring from weird places.
That's because they're,
From 1938 ODOT maps and,
that's because they're a contractor and they swear they didn't know it was zoned and didn't follow any rules and just put a big honking pond in their front yard right on the edge of the road. And we've caught them and said, stop, so, yeah, we'll stop, we're finished, which they did. It was a mess.
so I think you just need to state where on the pond you measure from. I mean, you measure setbacks for fences, houses, buildings. You measure setbacks everywhere. So I think in this case, ponds are a little less, so just stating from the edge of the pond bank, I don't know. You don't need to say where you need to measure to, because that's given in
Right.
everything you do.
Well, it depends where you're gonna have the deep end of the pond. It's not always in the center.
Well, it's saying from the edge of the pond.
Yeah,
Yeah, from the edge.
I think,
But is it gonna be 10 feet at that edge, down below?
it doesn't matter how
No,
deep
we're
it
not-
is.
this is to the property line, not down.
Property, okay.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the whole thing washing away.
What's currently in place for the county? I mean, whether you're zoned or not, sometimes there's just protocol that you need to follow apart from zoning. Do you have to get approval from the health department, from the county engineer?
You don't get an approval from anybody unless you're zoned when you're building a pond.
Okay.
There are some issues with the measuring that we've found over the years, and that's why I think is why it's written out the edge of the pond bank nearest, so we know it's not the water, it's not where the water's lowest point could be or where the water's highest point could be. You know, it's that the edge, you know, with the above ground, it's where it comes out, where the slope ends and it starts not being any pond anymore. That's where you start measuring from. The question is, though, do you measure to the road right of way or to the lot line? You never want to measure to the middle of the right of way because the right of way may not, the whole road might be on somebody else's, so you get extra space. I don't like lot line either because a lot of the lots go to the middle of the road out in the country.
Right.
And that gives, or to the middle of the right of way, not, but they always say the middle of the road, but it's the middle of the right of way. It's better to have them find the right of way edge and then measure from that for their setback.
Yes.
Because you can't be in your, you can't build it in the right of way, that's not allowed. And then everybody has an equal, may look different from the air because the road was shifted clear over here on the other side of the right of way, but it doesn't matter, it's still exactly, those are the parameters of the no man's land, the right of way. Can't do anything there. So everything should be measured from the edge of the right of way. I'm just not understanding with this or lot line or to the road right of way or lot line. Those got me very confused for why we have those there.
You want so many feet away from the lot line.
So change it to what you said there.
I would be happy with it saying for in-ground ponds or portions thereof from the edge of the pond bank nearest the road right of way,
And then cross
to
out.
the road right of way. Oh, I think I just dawned on me what he's saying.
Side lot lines.
No, he's saying you can't measure from the back of the pond or the side of the pond, you have to measure from the center or the front of the pond, closest to the road. And that measuring then is to the road right of way. So it's from the bank nearest the road right of way
Okay.
to the road right of way, that has to be your setback area.
So cross off both places where it says lot line.
Uh-huh.
But the lot line is still necessary for side lot lines, right?
Yeah.
So you still need lot line.
Uh-huh.
Side and back.
Well, I mean, this isn't just an issue with ponds, it's an issue with houses, fences, everything. I mean, there should be a general statement somewhere that says
How you measure right of way, or setbacks.
setbacks from the right of way, especially in the county where you said the lots go to the center of the right of way.
Not everywhere, but some places.
Some places, yes. So there might just need to be a general overall statement, maybe in the definition of setback or something that just clarifies that throughout the book.
You don't want it too close to a road either.
I think we're gonna have to add a few more words and say, nearest road, the bank nearest the road right of way to the lot line, or to the road right of way, and from the edges closest to the lot lines to the closest lot line. So it's not so confusing. There's a lot of commas and ors and ands that make phrases versus, I hated English back when I had to take sentences apart, and that's what we're doing here. Diagramming sentences was never my big thing.
But you don't want a pond that's too close to a road.
Yeah, but,
And
and
which
we
way
have,
does the water run across the field to wash out the side of the pond, or if the pond is down in it, and if the pond itself overflows, which way is the water gonna go? Because how high you want the sides on the pond so it retains the water inside?
we're not gonna design the ponds.
Good.
We're not gonna go that far. We will probably, down here a little farther, it requires that Hancock Soil and Water or an engineer signs off that it is a valid water holding,
Okay, that
non-flooding your
sounds
neighbor's
good.
kind of pond,
Yeah,
which is
okay.
what they do.
Okay.
Although Soil and Water did approve that 117 acre pond,
Oh, it's not really 117, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
30 feet deep.
You're talking about the borrow pit.
It's a borrow pit, it's not a
It's a
pond.
borrow
Oh.
pit, that at some
Oh, to
point,
go with that.
for the
junk yard.
landfill.
They're
Oh.
swearing it's a pond, and they're appealing, they're taking us to court. We're on our way to our second lawsuit on it, because they're saying it's a pond. It's not, it's a borrow pit. They even call it that on their drawings.
If you remove the clay and you go down to the gravel, how is it gonna retain water? Because it's the clay that's a natural liner to hold the water.
See, we have those kind of questions. Randy Bose is on
Of
their
course,
zoning commission.
Randy knows.
And he
He's
was
a-
asking
he's a sharp
these
guy.
questions of the group that was asking for it. And their attorney stood up and, for lack of a better term, mansplained to him how you build a pond and how you make it hold
Oh,
water.
wow.
And we're all going,
Ooh.
Mhm.
and he's like, yeah, I've seen ponds before. He was very,
that's fine.
like, oh, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it's gonna take about 26 years of heavy rain to fill it.
Do you have section A figured out how to,
I'm going to fix those.
both of them?
Okay.
They're about the same.
Yep.
Okay. Dave, you want to continue? D, once you find your paper back.
D, a permit may be issued only after zoning commission approval and if the application for a zoning certificate for artificial pond is accompanied by a set of detailed plans made by the Hancock Soil and Water Conservation District or similar service. 2,
Do you want to add in, Hancock Soil and Water Conservation District, comma, a certified engineer, comma, or similar service.
Yes.
That way, if they have an engineer who's done it, we don't have to have them go bother soil and water. If it has an engineer's stamp on it, it's something you guys can then consider.
That makes sense.
We're not saying every pond needs a certified engineer, are we?
No, it's
Oh.
oars, these are oars.
Okay.
But if we don't put that in there that way, they can have an engineer's plan, but they still need to go get a soil and water plan. That's a waste of time for everybody. Mark says he's pretty sure he has that, so.
Oh,
Perfect.
wonderful.
Okay, I'll just add that language.
One. 2, Article 2, Section 2, definitions, language to be added. Artificial pond. Any man-made body of water that retains water on an ongoing basis with a surface area greater than 500 square feet or more, with a depth of no less than 6 feet at its deepest point.
I think that is the definition that we took and put into your definitions already.
Okay.
Borrow pit, an area excavated or to be excavated from which soil and unconsolidated materials are removed or extracted below the grade level of the property which existed before any overbuilding of the site occurred for any purpose, including but not limited to for sale, exchange, or for use as fill for any activities, including but not limited to landscaping, building construction, levees, dams, highway construction or maintenance, or low-lying areas, whether on-site or off-site. Surface area. For a pond or borrow pit, it is the measurement taken from the highest point to be excavated area able to retain water.
Is the measurement taken from the highest point to be excavated?
The highest point to be excavated.
I'll try to unscramble that too.
From the highest point, able to retain water.
Yeah,
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Highest point. 3, all zoning districts except I-2 industrial district language to be added. Section 3, principal uses permitted subject to special conditions. 1, borrow pits under 3 acres in surface area. 4, Article 9, I-2 industrial district language to be added. Section 3, principal uses permitted subject to special conditions. The following uses shall be permitted, subject to the conditions hereinafter imposed for each use and subject further to the review and approval of the Board of Zoning Appeals. 1, borrow pits under 3 acres in surface area. 2, borrow pits 3 acres or greater in surface area.
I think that should be zoning commission because that's consistent with what you're doing everywhere else through the book. And the rest of it kind of makes sense to me. You guys okay with it?
Is there a reason they do the borrow pit two ways, but
Yeah.
it's all borrow pits?
Well,
It's every borrow pit, right?
Right.
they don't want any borrow pits larger than 3 acres in anything other than industrial. And there could be borrow pits often when you're building a house, if you need to build it up. A lot of people end up with a pond just because they have to have a borrow pit and then it's a big hole, so they convert it into a pond. And there's a very specific way to do that. It just doesn't automatically become a pond when they make a borrow pit. There's a lot of literature on it on the
But why do they, number 1 says borrow pits under 3 acres and number 2 says borrow pits 3 acres or greater? Why don't they just say all borrow pits there? Okay.
I think they're just including the smaller ones, that
Okay.
they are still permitted there, and then larger ones.
Okay.
We didn't
Could
want
just
it,
say borrow
we
pits
didn't
of
want
any
to make it
size.
seem like an I-1 or the I-2 district that borrow pits under 3 acres weren't permitted.
I got you.
If you want to make it that more concise, you can just say borrow pits of any size.
Yeah.
Would you rather do that?
It doesn't necessarily matter, the explanation helped,
But
that they're not
if we,
limiting it.
if we can simplify
Sure,
words, I'm all for that.
I'm okay with that.
You want to put a maximum on? You get 117 acres. That's 8 years of strip mining, basically.
I'm okay with putting a maximum on it.
Yeah.
We did some quick calculations with attorney brains in our office, and we think we figured out it's gonna take 50 to 65,000 14 cubic foot dump trucks to move out 117 acres, 30 feet deep. That's a lot of trucks in 2 years.
It's a lot of
trucks.
dirt.
Yeah. And they have to find ways to put it, that's not our problem.
I don't know what a good sized borrow pit is. I mean,
Obviously, 100 acres is too large.
It seems
Right.
pretty big.
yeah,
That's a big bit.
I wouldn't think ODOTs are more than 30 acres probably. I'm thinking of all the ones along the highways.
I'm not even sure they're that big,
Yeah.
because they have multiple smaller ones. It's kind of how they do it.
and they can place them where they need to place them. And they're saying, they're making them that size because it makes more sense to create another one further down the road. So, with that logic, I would go 28, 25 acres, something
That's
those.
kind of what I was thinking, more in that range.
Sounds good to me.
What number
Yeah.
are we going with? We gotta choose a number.
25. Is that what you're saying?
That's fine.
25, going once, going twice.
25 sold.
It's better than 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
definitely.
you know, and
definitely.
these kind of things that you're discussing, I think when it comes time for the hearings, people may have questions, you know, why'd you pick 25 kilowatts? Why do you do 25? And if they have some, your response then is, well, do you have a number you'd like to see? You're not sarcastically, but they may have knowledge that you don't have.
Right.
Right.
And ask them to
We're
explain
open.
why, yeah. So you might end up changing that to something different. Any of these numbers you might change to something different.
So what stops another 25 acre borrow pit from being placed right next to the first one?
Unless you do something about it.
Turned into a campground then.
But it's I-2 zoning,
Right.
and you don't have any, you might not even have any I-2 zoning.
We have to have
We
I-2
have-
zoning,
We'll have
right?
some.
Some, but it's not gonna be too big.
Yeah.
Right.
And if someone wants to convert a 100-acre farm field to I-2 zoning, you pretty much have very broad discretion. They don't have a right to I-2 zoning. So the township would have pretty broad discretion to turn them down.
Or if you didn't turn them down in the same amendment where you're changing it to I-2 zoning, you can put a limitation on how many borrow pits can go into 100 acres.
We can implement that then, you're saying?
Yeah, you can do it. When you're doing amending, yeah, you can do any weird combination of amendments together. They don't have to be related to one another. You know, if somebody comes along and wants something rezoned, that's an amendment. But if you guys know that you have an issue with something with non-conforming uses, that you want to have it switched around a little, that would be the time to do it. Because you're doing your hearings and everything all at once, do it then. So what I'm kind of saying is it's not going to jump up and spring it on you, because, you know, when they're asking for their rezoning, that's where you'll have the opportunity to see if you're going to have a problem with this.
How many borrow pits do we currently have in Allen Township?
I have no idea, but not any big ones that I know of, really.
So,
And I mean, ODOT has a number along 75, I think.
I guess my point is we don't currently have a problem.
I will state this, I know a landowner who has property close to where they're gonna put the new roundabout, and they were contacted for soil, to which they said no. However, they could have said yes,
Yep.
so that would have been a borrow pit.
Right. You wanna add a density on it? Anybody? Anybody?
I have some issues visualizing the spatial part of this, but if you have a 25-acre borrow pit and you make it a mile to the next one, that's not gonna seem like that much, is it? Not much space between them really, because 25 acres is a big area, right?
That's pretty far.
Miles
Yeah.
pretty far.
Yeah.
What, again, how big's the I-2 district?
Right, that's what
Right,
boils down to.
that's
Yeah.
gonna be what's going to restrict
At the end
that,
of
is
the
the
day.
size of the I-2 district.
I guess I'm not that worried about the density issue, I
Yeah.
guess.
I'm okay. 25 acres would be done for right now.
Okay.
Yep.
There's nothing in here about density for ponds. I thought there was supposed to be something in Washington Townships about the number of ponds that could be put on a, I'm not seeing it. Oh, one pond per
Like I said, I thought I read it.
Where's it say that?
B.
One pond per parcel.
Yep.
Yeah, on the first page.
Instead of all artificial ponds may not exceed, I would like it to say no artificial ponds may
There you go.
exceed 3
Yeah.
acres.
Yes, that reads better.
The all shall comply with the requirements of the resolution. In A is fine, but I would like no instead of all there.
Okay.
Okay, and I will write something for A and B there and run it past people in our office and ask them if you know what I'm talking about. They're good like that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
The 25 acres, is there a reason why you want it that big? It's 1 million square feet, give or take, the quick math.
Bump
It's
it
like
down
1,000
further.
by 1,000 feet. The size of Best Buy distribution center, for example.
That is-
And if that's
Quite
30
large.
feet deep, I mean, that's pretty big.
The depth usually is regulated by where you have bedrock. I don't know where bedrock is here, if it's high or low, but
Right.
Washington Township out there, they get to 30 feet before they hit rock.
That just seems like,
That's true.
that
It-
just seems really big.
It does.
What number sounds good to you?
Yeah, pond guy.
I mean, a 500,000 square feet is big. That's big. Am I, just off the top of my head.
5 acres?
Well, 5,
Or is that still
I
quite
mean,
large?
there's some farmers that put in 5-acre ponds, so it's tough, but you're limiting that to 3, so, on ponds. But, I don't know,
5-acre pond is pretty big.
that's
Yeah.
huge,
Yeah.
but, I don't know. 20,
I think we need to take that number down.
Yeah.
that
Okay.
number seems to come down because it just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
We
it
were,
is.
we were
It
actually
is.
reducing it.
Yeah, well,
But-
we were
We're
talking
putting-
about 100, and then we were like, oh, 25 sounds small.
Yeah.
So
Forward to
now,
that.
so now it's like,
Especially if there's not any sort of limitation on the quote density of those. If they string a bunch of those together, then like you pointed out,
Yeah, along the
I
interstate.
mean, you've got,
But the density will be limited to, they have to be an I-2 district.
sure,
And
Which?
one per parcel.
One per parcel, so
But still, I have no problem with taking it down, less than 25.
What, 10, 15?
come on, choose a number.
Take it down to 10.
5 or 10,
I don't
I'd
know
say
what the
5 or
number
10.
is, but
Is 10?
10 is, well, that's 430,000, right? Square feet, 43,000 per acre,
Right.
so 430,000 square feet. That's a pretty good borrow pit. That's probably more manageable than a million.
Okay.
Okay, we'll make it 10.
How about 5?
5's a little small.
You think-
because we
5
only
might
have-
be a little small for
Okay.
that purpose. but-
All right.
And in the industrial
Okay,
area, it might
so-
be too small.
So
Okay,
we want to do 10
we're
then?
going to do 10. I think.
Dave, any,
That
you
sounds
go
good
10?
to me.
Claire?
Yeah, 10 is fine.
Guess we'll
Okay.
go with 10 then. Was adult entertainment going to be in the general provisions?
Yes.
Okay. And you said,
Mark says he's got
Mark's
the
got
one they've
that.
already adopted.
ponds we just went through, that's part of general provisions? Was there anything else for general provisions then?
Are we going to insert the marijuana? Since we're inserting the adult entertainment, can we insert
The marijuana.
the commercial, the prohibition of commercial growing and retail?
Maybe, but we don't really have any, rules on them other than it's not allowed.
Okay.
So we could probably add, it'd be almost just like one line that
That'd be fine.
pursuant to this resolution number of the township trustees, it's not, they're not
That'd be
permitted.
fine, even if it's one line, I'd like to see it in there.
So there's no question.
Yeah. You don't address it. Yes, we did. Where we at now?
Well, general exceptions would be the next section. I know at one point in time you mentioned something about landfills.
Yeah.
Is that
so-
something that
yep,
would go in this
yeah,
area?
Yeah, since we're kind of hitting some different topics. Um, You had made a comment about, we have the sanitary landfill that has oversight from our county commissioners. And you made a comment that it was unlikely that they would permit a new landfill in the township.
Right.
I personally, commissioners come and go. And if there's any way that we can give ourselves a little more protection on that issue,
Okay.
I would like to address that. I think we have a significant area already dedicated to a landfill. I think we've paid our dues as far as landfill. We don't need any more new landfills,
No.
so, and I don't want to rely on a couple of elected officials as to whether or not that could happen.
Now, is that something though, like you said, can they override, what can they override that we
The
do?
county could, but a private landfill could not.
Gotcha. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, no
I
more
don't think it's
private
good to have
landfill.
that.
No.
Okay. You have a couple of businesses in the township that are, like you may want to make your I-2 kind of area somewhere out around the landfill. I mean, there's a explosives company out there, there's, well, then the,
Wrecking yards.
yeah, there's a couple of, like impound yards kind of things. And then there's the gas to electricity generator that's on the landfill property, but it's not landfill, it doesn't belong to the landfill. It belongs to, it was Granger, I don't know who owns it now. They've turned to some, it's an initial thing, and I don't remember what the initials are. But those are things that are kind of volatile, all of them. I mean, even the landfill is volatile because there's a lot of methane in it.
Sure.
Trying to bleed that off and turn it into electricity, but it still has to burn out and flame off, and it's just not something, it definitely falls into the category of I-2 kind of industrial use.
True.
I would think zoning the landfill I-2 would be
Your I-2 area. that
your I-2 area.
Is a landfill restricted to I-2?
We could.
That'd be a good idea,
I would think.
out there.
I'll write something up about landfills for the next time.
Okay.
We're gonna have an eclectic mix of weird stuff to go back and look at next time, so I'll have to keep shifting gears.
Okay. Anything else before we move on to general exceptions?
Where is that?
It's the next section, page 61.
I just, would it make sense, you know, we briefly touched on the fact that a building code is separate from zoning. And it seems that for some reason, people get hung up on thinking that if they vote for zoning, they're voting for a building code. The building code is already in place, we talked about, that comes,
It's a state thing.
it's a state thing. But could we just maybe have one or two sentences that address that a building code is separate from zoning and that it comes from the state, it's state regulated, just to have, again, just a little blurb in there.
Just like in the title at the very start of the book, you're saying, or where would you put it?
I don't know, I guess, in my opinion, it kind of sounds like what you would do for adult entertainment or marijuana or not. You can just make a brief comment that it is separate.
We could put it in the part where John was commenting at the front, or we say what the purpose and our mission
Okay.
statement is.
Okay.
That zoning is meant for the orderly development
Okay.
and advancement of the township, or what, something like that.
That's
And it is
true.
not a zoning code, or is not a
Building code.
building code.
Right,
Right.
right.
It's a blanket statement that covers the whole book at that point.
But I do recall, and it's been some years ago, but there were a number of people that really got hung up on that.
The
Right.
building code.
Mhm.
And also, that and taxes are the two things that people were most worried about. Zoning, and there was some mailings that went out that had some stuff in it that was not true. Zoning can't tell you how to mow your grass. They can't tell you what color your house can be or what your fence can look like, other than where it's positioned and how big it can be. If you want to have a purple and pink picket fence, you're allowed to do that. Now, your neighbors aren't going to like it very much, but zoning has nothing to do with it. So it doesn't restrict your ability to do much of anything other than where you put it on your property and what use of your property can have. So, and that's something that I think at hearings you guys are gonna have to be able to convey.
Right.
At least township zoning can't regulate those things. I don't know, city does it, I don't know how they do that, but they do it.
Yes, yeah. Go talk with Dublin, Ohio about all the criteria that they have. I mean, township zoning can have like high, do they have like grass standards or anything like that?
Can't have that.
The farm can have any deal.
They can't zone aesthetics or times of uses. They can't tell you that you can't, operate something after a particular time. We can tell you, you cannot operate it after a particular time with lights that shine in your neighbors' yards, or with sound that's going to be too loud for the neighbors around you. We can't tell you, you have to shut down whatever you're doing at 10 p.m. I mean, that's not something that zoning has, they just don't have that authority. Townships, like saying earlier, is creatures of statute. And if it doesn't say we can do it, we can't.
Okay.
Too many people live with let's think outside the box. Can't do that. I mean, I know we get criticized a lot because we don't think outside the box, but we're just not allowed to by the Ohio Constitution. We have a box and we can go as far as we can to the edges of it, but we cannot leave it.
Start with Article 16, General Exceptions. Section 1600, Area, Height, and Use Exceptions. The regulations in this resolution shall be subject to the following interpretations and exceptions. Section 1601, Essential Services. Essential services serving the township shall be permitted as authorized and regulated by law and other resolutions of the township. Overhead or underground lines and necessary towers and poles to be erected to service primarily those services beyond the township shall receive the review and approval after public hearing of the zoning commission. Such review by the zoning commission shall consider abutting property and uses as they relate to easements, right-of-way, overhead lines, poles and towers, and further shall consider injurious effects on adjacent property as well as the orderly appearance of the township.
That can, that zoning can address that? Because I didn't think that is this public utilities that we're talking about?
I think so.
I mean, that doesn't seem like,
Yeah,
I didn't think.
I don't give that paragraph a high grade.
Yeah, because the other companies, they're gonna come in
I
and put
mean-
whatever they want across your property, and that's that.
With it being a public utility, I guess I had the understanding that since they're serving the public, they pretty much had their way with what they wanted to do and where. Maybe, am I wrong?
No, you're not. And there's a specific ORC that says we can't really regulate public utilities. They have to stay, of course, in their easements and stuff like that, but they can't just come put anything they want. But they have easements all over the place, and if they want to use them, they can.
Can they create new easements?
They have to buy them.
Okay.
They wanna come across your field.
So if the landowner, if they say, I'd like to put a cell tower right in the middle of your field, and I say, no, thank you,
They can't do it
okay,
unless they get the
okay.
ability from you to have be on that. Now, if they want to put it in the road right of way, then,
Okay, right.
but they can't fit those on there. This bigger thing with power poles and telephone poles, which aren't as prevalent as they used to be. They're trying to do more underground stuff.
Right, right. Do we take that out?
It's for those services primarily, those areas beyond the township shall receive the review and approval after public hearing. I just don't know how that got in there and what it has to do with. What authority we have to do that.
Paragraph might be 40 years old also.
Yeah, and I'm thinking it might not be. If you want to remove it, we can.
No.
Again, that's one less thing for the zoning commission to deal with if we don't have that authority.
I just don't like someone, I mean, it's not likely, but someone could start what's essential and trying to broaden that
Well, the power
as a
company
way.
wanted to put a big line across the Cranberry Farm on the backside. They wanted to bring it in so many feet from the property line and further into the field. And my father said, no. So they had to put it along where the fence line is.
So where they already had their right, of their easement.
They
probably already
had
had
to
an
stay at
easement
the,
there.
yeah, they had to stay at the property line. They
Right.
weren't allowed to come in the field. In the back part of the farm, otherwise it would have been
Right.
a big power line
Because
going
that would,
underground.
that would devalue your property.
Correct. So,
Right.
yeah, leave it in there.
Leave it in? We
If don't-
can't,
If we can't enforce that,
we
Yeah.
can't enforce it.
Yeah.
are we missing what the intent of this is, or is it just outdated?
With this or without this, they still have to go through that process that they went through with your father. They still have to get permission and buy a new easement to move onto your private
Okay,
property.
well then you can take that out.
But this seems to be saying that the township will hold a, zoning commission will hold a hearing for review and approval. Well, I don't think you have the ability to give review and approval, and I think you might be giving people the wrong idea that they have some power to try to do something about
Take
these
things.
things in the right of way or the utility easements. I think I would prefer to just have that go.
Take it out.
Okay.
Okay with that?
Go on section 1602, height limit. The height limitations of this resolution shall not apply to farm buildings, chimneys, church spires, flagpoles, public monuments, or wireless transmission towers, provided, however, that the Board of Zoning Appeals may specify a height limit for any such structure when such structure requires authorization as a conditional use.
I don't think that should be zoning appeals, I think it should be zoning commission. Because zoning commission do conditional uses.
Go on.
Sure.
Oh, section 1603, lot area. Any lot existing on the effective date of this resolution may be used for any principal use permitted other than conditional uses for which special lot area requirements are specified in this resolution. In the district in which such lot is located, whether or not such lot complies with the lot area and width requirements of this resolution. Such use may be established provided that all requirements other than lot area and width prescribed in this resolution are complied with, and provided that not more than one dwelling unit shall occupy any lot except in conformance with the provisions of this resolution for required lot area for each dwelling unit. Section 1604. Access through yards. For the purpose of this resolution, access drives may be placed in the required front or side yards so as to provide access to rear yards or accessory or attached structures. These drives shall not be considered as structural violations in front and side yards. Further, any walk, terrace, or other pavement servicing a like function and not in excess of 9 inches above the grade upon which placed shall for the purpose of this resolution not be considered to be a structure and shall be permitted in any required yard.
Where's that 9 inches come from? Does anybody have any idea on that?
That would be like a deck, something that is raised up enough to be like a deck, or why 9 inches, I don't know.
Okay.
But,
Any walk terrace or other pavement servicing like function. Okay, they don't want the sidewalk higher than 9 above the grade.
think maybe of one of the patios or terraces that have the little brick wall around them. Those start to be, they aren't flat. So I think that's what they're trying to say, the exception doesn't go as far as that.
Okay. Is that, do we want that in there? Is that needed in there?
Yeah, unless you don't want to worry about that, but I think we talked about this one other time, and Matt, didn't you say that in the city they do consider that construction, the driveway and all that stuff, because it's non-permeable? Remember what
I
you were
mean,
talking
for
about?
drainage standards
Yeah,
and for lot coverage
for lot coverage, right.
in the multifamily.
Okay.
But
Here we're basically saying the drive shall not be considered as structural violations in front and side yards, which makes sense, because you gotta have your driveway come out through your setback.
Right. Then
Any
leave it.
walk, terrace, or other pavement servicing a like function, and not in excess of 9 inches above grade on which placed.
I was just saying that the 9 inches seems to be you're saying if they have,
A weirdly random number.
Mhm.
and anything over 9 inches,
Anything under 9 inches, they're saying is okay. If it's 9 inches or more, we're considering it structure, and it's not permitted without fitting the setbacks and such.
okay.
But I don't know why 9 inches.
Well, it's got
It seems
settle.
kind of high, really, above grade,
It
before it
does.
gets determined to be a structure. 9 inches is
Yeah.
good solid tripping
Mm-hmm.
amount.
I thought it was decks.
That's what I was thinking of deck, but
Say leave it.
I view this as permission to have a driveway.
Right.
Mhm.
If you raise this up to, say, 24 inches or something, is that permission to put in a deck without a permit?
It's a little fuzzy, but I think it opens it up a lot more, yeah.
yeah, I think it does too.
And is that good or bad?
Bad.
No, leave it 9 inches.
She was quick with that, I trust her.
Decks change the footprint of the property, and they're raised, they're like a porch. And decks can also very easily be covered and enclosed, and suddenly you have a screen room, and zoning didn't say anything about it, but if it's sticking way back past where it should be, it could be infringing on your neighbors. So that's why they have to at least be regulated.
Okay.
So it's not so much the addition of the deck as if it's going to be built, like in an easement or right up against the property. Those are the things
Right.
that we're concerned about.
Yeah, we want to put it in the category of things that they still have to get a permit, so we are sure that they're fitting the setbacks and the stuff that, like any other structure would have to fit. Now, you guys have gone very lenient, though, taking a step back here and thinking this through, on the issue of what is a building,
Right.
by determining that if it's on skids, they're not considered a building, they're not considered a structure, and you don't care where they get put. And they could be right on a lot line. So,
Did we finalize that? I don't know that we finalized.
I just remembered it because I was going through and cleaning stuff
Yeah.
up and I saw it, but
We had put on their review.
yeah.
Yeah.
We can come back and when we're
Yeah,
going through
I
the
think
whole
we
thing,
need to-
revisit that, but
Those, storage containers, those, almost like a rail.
oh yeah,
I think
shipping
of it.
containers.
Shipping containers. I'm aware that there's a certain township, that's grown to be a large problem. They're putting them in the front yards, they're putting, and
You have a pretty significant number of them here too.
I have seen some. Yeah.
They, the building code for the state of Ohio was changed a year or two ago, have them be considered buildings.
Okay.
So they would be able to get a building permit to just set in the blocks and have a, and there's a number of them. There were, I don't know if they're still there, but there were.
And I think we have provisions because this township that I'm thinking of, they even have a person living in the shipping container.
It's getting
Which-
popular.
It's kind of a
Which,
thing, yeah.
but I think we did address that as far as,
Here's the thing though, if they take shipping containers, they take, say, 4 of them, stack them in a cube, put them on a foundation, you can't, it's not a building code, so we can't tell them that
Right.
that is really ugly. But if
Right.
it comes into the category of being a building, then they're still allowed.
okay,
So we can't regulate aesthetics.
okay, but setbacks
But
and,
making sure they're set back, they have the
Right.
proper, amount of yard space, they aren't covering more of the lot than they're allowed to cover, they don't get higher than they're allowed to be in that area, all that still counts. But it's just their building material that
Okay.
they're choosing.
In the city, anything over 50 square feet, whether it has a permanent foundation or not, is an accessory structure, so.
Which means it's regulated.
So like you go to Menards and you buy a shed, even though it's not on a permanent foundation, most are larger than 50 square feet.
Yeah, Marion Township does too, it doesn't matter if it's on skids or if it's on a block foundation. It's permanent. Is there another door from back there? But that's something we'll revisit when we get to
okay,
it.
good.
So you want to leave this as is?
I don't have any reason changing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on.
Mhm.
Article 17, Administration and Enforcement. Section 1700, Enforcement. The provisions of this resolution shall be administered and enforced by the zoning inspector or by such deputies of his department as the zoning inspector may delegate to enforce the provisions of this resolution.
Let's hope you don't get to the point where you need zoning inspector and deputies.
Yeah, deputy sounds good.
Yikes.
Do you need to change that from his to his/her or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
we could use they and them.
Yeah, I don't know how far down that rabbit hole we go, but
On. Section 1701, duties of zoning inspector. The zoning inspector shall have the power to grant zoning compliance and occupancy certificates, to make inspections of buildings or premises necessary to carry out his duties and the enforcement of this resolution. It shall be unlawful for the zoning inspector to approve any plans or issue any zoning certificates or certificates of occupancy or any excavation or construction until he has inspected such plans in detail and found them to conform with this resolution. The zoning inspector shall not refuse to issue a zoning certificate when conditions imposed by this resolution are complied with by the applicant despite violations of contracts such as covenants or private agreements which may occur upon the granting of said certificate.
That's what Matt was saying about if the homeowners association says you can't have a fence, but if our rule says you can have a fence and they apply for it, we don't care about what their rules are. That's a different layer of somebody to deal with. We just tell them whether, in our set of rules, if it would be permitted. But we don't trump the homeowners association either. We can give them the permit, but they can still come after him and tell him he can't use it.
Section 1702, plot plan. The zoning inspector shall require that all applications for zoning certificates shall be accompanied by plans and specifications, including a plot plan in triplicate drawn to scale showing the following. 1, the actual shape, location, and dimension of the lot. 2, the shape, size, and location of all buildings or other structures to be erected, altered, or moved and of any building or other structures already on the lot. 3, the existing and intended use of the lot and of all such structures upon it, including in residential areas, the number of dwelling units the building is intended to accommodate. 4, such other information concerning the lot or adjoining lots as may be essential for determining whether the provisions of this resolution are being observed.
Would this be across the board regardless of what the district is?
Yes, I think, yeah. That's what it is now. I mean, that's what it says now. I mean, you can make a plot plan something that's necessary for only particular areas if you want.
Do you have a scenario you're coming up with?
The thing that worries me about not having it in every area is most of the districts, like residential, business, we have a maximum lot coverage that's permissible. But the plot plan will figure out if they're going to be exceeding their maximum coverage. You know, there are some houses in subdivisions that are so huge that they have a little fringe around them, you know. And some of the houses in Findlay, in the old districts, they have like just nothing around them. They're taking up way more than their percentage. And we need to make sure that if it's something that you're regulating, which it is at this point, you have to have a way to be able to determine if they're fitting that regulation. And a plot plan would do that.
We have other places, and I think with maybe wind and solar and somewhere else where there was, as I recall, pretty detailed on like a plot plan. I don't know if there's one way to make it concise.
We could say, well, I don't think we want to try to add it all in under here. I would rather add, these apply unless more specific rules are included in some particular section. You know, like if you get to wind and solar and the plot plan stuff they're asking for is way more in-depth than what they're asking for here, so that would count. You can't just say, well, we only needed this for a plot plan.
Right.
Which people do. That's what our lawsuit's about with Washington Township. They read one section and nothing else in the code and decided this is how we're gonna do it. And you can't tell us we can't because it says in your code we can do this. But nothing's read into action.
Right.
However, attorneys should know that, but regular, non-legal trained minds may not understand that when they're reading it. So we wanna put a disclaimer in there, that this is how it is, unless some section requires something more specific.
Okay.
So we're covered by this word there. Okay.
Section 1703, zoning certificates. The following shall apply in the issuance of any zoning certificate. 1, zoning certificates not to be issued. No zoning certificate shall be issued for the erection, alteration, or use of any building or structure or part thereof, or for the use of any land which is not in accordance with all provisions of this resolution. 2, certificates for new use of land. No land heretofore vacant shall hereafter be used, or an existing use of land be hereafter changed to a use of a different class or type unless a certificate of occupancy is first obtained for the new or different use.
Can you streamline that wording a little bit? I'm
You don't
not,
like the heretofore and
I'm
hereafter?
I'm not a fan of that. I mean, it sounds impressive, but it's like, what did that say? So,
Yeah, well, I'll turn this to green, so I know I need to work with it.
So keep going. Certificates for new use of buildings. No building or structure or part thereof shall be changed to or occupied by a use of a different class or type unless a certificate of occupancy is first obtained for the new or different use. 4, zoning certificates required. No building or structure or part thereof shall be hereafter erected, altered, moved, or repaired unless a zoning certificate shall have been first issued for such work. The terms altered and repaired shall include any changes in structural footprint, type, class, or kind of occupancy, or other changes affecting or regulated by the Hancock County or State of Ohio building codes or this resolution, except for minor repairs or changes not involving any of the aforesaid features.
Let me think this through here. I want to add definitions, if we don't already have them, for altered and repaired. So that this, what's in here, we can make it a little bit more specific. They'll find it sooner than waiting to get down into here to get it.
5, zoning certificate expiration. Zoning certificates shall expire at the end of 1 year from the date of issuance unless the construction or use has commenced within that period of time. Where construction is being diligently carried on, the zoning inspector may issue 1 12-month extension of the expiration date.
That's pretty standard language.
Okay.
6, farm buildings accepted. Zoning certificates shall not be required for barns, sheds, and outbuildings incidental to agricultural uses. Such buildings shall, however, conform to yard requirements established in section 1400. Compliance certificates shall be required for dwellings accessory to farming operation.
Can you insert grain bins in there along with barns?
Grain bins. So it'll be barns, sheds, grain bins, and outbuildings?
Yeah.
Okay.
So such buildings, however, shall conform to yard requirements, so.
Setbacks.
Setbacks. Should we,
Should I say yard requirements?
setbacks?
Yeah.
Or, you know, when you say yard requirements, it's kind of like, okay.
It's kind of odd.
Yeah.
You want to add and setbacks? Established in section 14. I don't know if 14 is the proper section or going to be the proper section when we get this all numbered. So I'll just make a note there to make sure we aren't referring to something that is nonsensical.
Right.
Keep on.
What do you mean, is that?
Section 1704, compliance certificate. Although buildings, structures, and uses for agricultural purposes, public utility purposes, and essential service purposes are permitted in all use districts, it shall be unlawful to hereafter erect, alter, move, change, convert, or enlarge such buildings or structures until such proposed work has been determined to comply with all requirements of this resolution and a compliance certificate has been issued therefore.
Okay, I think we have to take out essential services because we eliminated that whole section number. And okay, we keep calling these compliance certificates. And that's what they call them all the way through here. And they're usually, everybody refers to them as a permit, a zoning
Sounds
permit.
better.
Do we want to change the language that we're talking about these, anywhere where we're talking about a compliance certificate to be a zoning permit?
That
I would
sounds
rather,
good.
I'd rather use permit.
Yeah.
I think that's a term everybody's familiar with, right?
What do they say in the city?
What's that?
Do they call them zoning permits or compliance certificates?
Zoning permits.
That's okay. That's what every place else does too. Okay, I'll make those changes throughout then.
A2, no compliance certificate shall be issued for a building, structure, land, or part thereof which is not in accordance with the provisions of this resolution. 3, a record of all compliance certificates issued shall be kept on file in the office of the zoning inspector, and copies shall be furnished upon request to any person having a proprietary or tenancy interest in the property involved.
Okay. We've referred a couple of times through here to certificates of occupancy. We all clear on what those are? Different than,
People wanna go with them?
well,
Go ahead and
like,
explain.
you get a permit to, a zoning permit to build a structure that you're going to have be a Dollar General. It's gonna be a
Okay.
store. And then you go out of business. Somebody else comes along and they wanna put something in that building. They
Okay.
don't have to get a building permit because they're not
Right.
changing it, but they have to get a certificate of occupancy, so we know that what they're putting in there fits in the category of what's
Gotcha.
allowed in that district. So those are certificates of occupancy.
Okay.
If something's gonna change, yeah, we don't, it gets confusing, and this is where it gets confusing with the building code stuff, because a lot of places, we get a certificate of occupancy for like our new building we're building for the county, when the state zoning inspector comes through and says, yep, it's all good enough for people to be in. So it's a different kind of thing here when we talk about certificate of occupancy. It's for us to be able to determine that the use that's gonna go on in that building is something that's permitted in that district.
Is it worth having that in the definition?
That's what I was just gonna write down here, I'm gonna do those definitions of zoning permit and certificate of occupancy.
Because I didn't know about that definition. I only knew about, like what you said, that the building's ready and you get an okay.
And you think that's, yeah, and that's not, the zoning inspector doesn't have to go in and say, yeah, you can live in this building now, or you can use this building now.
The city does change of use, not certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
But it is confusing, because
See, I think change of use makes more sense.
Yeah.
So change of use permit, since we're doing zoning permit and change of use permit.
Yeah, because
Because
it defines what it is.
I always saw occupancy
Yeah.
permit meant, okay.
It's
all set
safe to be
together.
in there,
Yeah,
and we
it's
don't
all-
do that, that's not our
Yeah.
thing.
So, yeah, I like that
Okay.
other term better.
So we don't have anything for a permit for occupancy then?
We don't, no,
So it would only be for a change of use at that point?
right.
That's the only place where,
Because when they get their zoning permit, that's when we know what they're planning to use it for. Is it gonna be a residence, is it gonna be a business? That's what we give them that permit for. So that's their initial one. Now, once they sell it and somebody else is gonna go in there, then we need to know, what are you gonna use it for? And that's where we get the change of use.
Okay,
Change of use.
so the initial permit is basically the occupancy permit?
Yeah.
Within reason.
Because we have determined that that's something that's allowed
Right.
in this particular district.
Then I like
Now-
change of use.
Yeah, if we have, like if I build my Dollar General and then I stop wanting to use it as a Dollar General and you wanna take it over as a five and dime, still the same use, I don't think you have to go through that because it's
Okay.
not a change, it's still the same kind of
Sure.
business that's allowed right there. That's something that the zoning inspector will have to use a little bit of subjective determining if it's the same kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Section 1705, footer inspection.
another confusing one. This is a pet peeve of mine,
Oh,
but go ahead, sorry.
so that property owners may be protected from potential errors in the location of buildings, the zoning inspector or his representative shall inspect the excavation for structural footers before any concrete is installed. It shall be the responsibility of the property owner to notify the zoning inspector at least 24 hours prior to pouring concrete and to provide appropriate evidence of the location of lot lines. If an inspection has not been made within 24 hours of the zoning inspector's notice from the property owner, the inspection shall be considered approved, and pouring of concrete shall commence, or may commence.
So once it started to keep going, huh?
And,
Wait,
okay.
wait, I
So if
got-
they start pouring concrete, they can
No,
just
my,
keep going.
I've worked in communities with strong building codes, and the footer inspection is, they're watching you pour the footer to make sure you're doing it technically correct and that it's structurally sound and doing all this. This, we're just going out and checking to see if you're putting it in the right place. That's just kind of like the certificate of occupancy, it bleeds over with the building code.
Right. And it's not at all uncommon for people to show us where they're gonna put something, get their permit, and then when they come to dig their hole, well, who's gonna know? Move it to where they want it. And then when we do find it, if the building's already built and the footer's already poured, it's quite an expensive thing for them to change. This way, the concept is, as soon as they get the hole dug for where they're gonna put the footers, then our inspector checks and, yep, you're still within compliance, this is where you're supposed to be. And then it's a whole lot easier to move the hole than it is to move the foundation.
Yeah.
So it's literally just, make sure you're putting it in the right spot.
Yeah, there's no technical review.
And I don't know what we should call it.
I know,
Footer inspection is bad, I get that, I've always sort of cringed, because people think we're telling them if they have the right kind of footer, and when people have a basement that cracks, they come back and say, well, you said it was okay.
You did a footer inspection.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
not what we do.
we haven't come up with a better term.
Thanks.
I can see the reason for it, because if you had 4 poles and said that's where the foundation is gonna be, and then you came back a month later and said, wait, that isn't where the poles were. Whereas when the concrete is poured, then it's pretty definitive then. And I understand the difference between the state, when they come, they're gonna look at rebar, and they're gonna look at thickness and width
The
of
depth and
footer, yeah,
Type
all
of
that kind
concrete
of stuff.
and all
And
that.
they could care less where it is on the property, that's the job of,
us.
yes.
Into a footer location.
Well, the first sentence does say, protected from potential errors in the location of buildings.
That's being polite, like it's an error, because usually it's not.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I do like footer location inspection.
There you go.
Change that.
Yeah,
I think that's helpful.
Yeah.
So say that again, you like footer location inspection?
That
I do
makes more
too.
sense, yeah.
Because then that's in your title.
Just gives the nod a little bit to what it is.
Yeah, I think so.
Section 1706 final inspection. The holder of every zoning certificate and compliance certificate for the construction, erection, alteration, repair, or moving of any building, structure, land, or part thereof shall notify the zoning inspector immediately upon completion of the work authorized by such certificate for final inspection. Section 1707.
What final inspection are they doing?
Just that it is completed, because your permit expires after a year, unless you come and ask for an extra 12 months. So as soon as it's done, you need to let them know so they don't pull your permit.
Okay.
Because if you build something in a zoned area, once you get your permit, you should keep that, even though the building's all done. It's not like paperwork you can throw away like a receipt. You need to keep that. Like in a shed, it's a good idea to, tack it on the wall out in the shed, so it's someplace that people can find it.
Okay.
Some places require you to display your permit the whole time building is going on. But,
You have to be able to see it from the road. And
yeah, but it's, in smaller communities, it's up to you guys if you want to do that, but, I mean, your zoning inspector is going to know if they are issued a permit for what's going on.
Right.
Section 1707, certificates of occupancy. No land, building, or part thereof shall be occupied by or for any use unless and until a certificate of occupancy shall have been issued for such use. The following shall apply in the issuance of any certificate. 1. Certificates not to be issued. No certificates of occupancy shall be issued for any building, structure, or part thereof, or for the use of any land which is not in accordance with all the provisions of this resolution. 2, certificates required, no building or structure except farm buildings or parts thereof, which is hereafter erected or altered, shall be occupied or used, or the same cause to have done, unless and until a certificate of occupancy shall have been issued for such building structure.
Hold on.
Yeah. What did we say?
I don't think anybody does that. Not unless there's a change in use, because I guess it should be something that's more in the negative, that if I get a permit to build my Dollar General, and after I get everything done, I have it all built up, and decide instead of doing my, little department store, I end up with, I don't know, a bar or an adult bookstore, something that is not what was contemplated for there, then it should be on the negative that they can stop them from having a purpose in there. But this really starts to be where it gets confusing about building codes.
Yeah.
We might need to revamp this whole section a little bit.
Yeah.
Because down at the next section is about where, the next paragraph is about where it does matter, where there's a change of use.
Go ahead and go on.
Yeah.
Tim, I'm gonna pause for a second. Going back to what you said earlier about displaying a permit, like visible from the road. The only scenario I can come up with is if somebody owns so much land that you can't see what they're doing out back. Is it useful to have a permit displayed at the road? That way, I don't know that you know what's going on. I don't know.
People won't, I mean, it's tough. And then, like I
Yeah.
said, your zoning inspector, I mean,
Yeah.
my goodness.
Most,
In a township, people know what's going on.
most places that have it being displayed is to stop the neighbors calling and ratting people out, so that they
Okay.
don't have to keep dealing with phone calls because, and tell them, yes, they have a permit.
That's fine.
I see the permit.
Okay,
Not that you have neighbors who rat each other out.
just wait.
I know some townships that do all the time.
I do.
Okay, 3.
Certificates for existing buildings. Certificates of occupancy shall be issued for buildings, structures, and parts thereof, or existing uses of land if, after inspection, it is found that such buildings, structures, or parts thereof, or such use of land are in conformity with the provisions of this resolution. 4,
Wait
record.
a second.
And we're
We
gonna
want to
change
change
the
that to
wording.
change of use permit.
Yes, yes.
Okay. 4, record of certificates. A record of all certificates issued shall be kept on file in the office of the zoning inspector. Copies shall be furnished upon request to any person having a proprietary or tenancy interest in the property involved.
One of the things that has been a little bit of an issue between the county and the zone townships are the zone townships don't always send their building permits or their change of occupancy permits to the auditor's office. And the auditor's office is way more capable of picking up new tax stuff if somebody sends them the permits. Otherwise, sometimes there are houses built that they don't know anything about, then they aren't getting taxed. So, under the zoning inspector's duties, do you want to add in there that it's a duty of the zoning inspector to provide a copy of all occupancy permits and zoning permits to the county auditor's office?
I don't think it's a bad idea, but it's another thing for them to do. But I don't know how often, I've never been a zoning inspector before, so I don't know how often you're gonna be sending something in too.
As long as they send them in by September of each year in one batch, they're fine. They don't have to send them every time they do them. Everything that's gonna be put on taxes has to be there by the second Monday in September. I don't know, it's so weird after a date, but it's some statewide thing.
The weirder thing is that you know that.
Lots of little bits of useless knowledge.
Isn't, just on this, wouldn't any of these be public information?
They are, but if you don't know to ask for it, you don't.
Well, I'm just saying, this is any person having a proprietary or tenancy in,
Oh, I see what you mean.
I mean, if someone comes up and asks for the whole file on a house in the city, we just give them a copy of the whole file, you know, I mean, it's not public knowledge, it'd be my public information if they request it.
Why don't we just stop it with, records are kept in the office of the zoning inspector?
Yeah,
They're public record. And public records have morphed and changed a lot since this was last drafted. That's probably why that's there.
Okay.
And it flew right over my head. Good catch.
5, certificates for dwelling accessory buildings. Buildings or structures accessory to dwellings shall not require separate certificates of occupancy, but may be included in the certificate of occupancy for the dwelling when shown in the plot plan and when completed at the same time as such dwellings. 6,
Wait a minute, what is,
I'm just not
Saying
sure
if
where
they're
they're going
doing
with
the
this certificate of occupancy. I mean, if you're building an accessory structure, you get a zoning permit.
for an accessory structure,
Yeah,
but not a dwelling unit?
but even a dwelling,
Yeah.
I mean, you get the zoning permit for the house and then you, when it's being constructed, you do your footer location inspection, and then there's a final inspection. Now, are they saying that the end of the final inspection or certificate of occupancy is,
I don't know.
they're using certificate of occupancy like all over the
Yeah,
place
And
here.
they're
They
getting
are.
it too
They are.
much like a building code to determine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we don't care if at the end of the 2-year period or 1 year, whatever it turns out to be for the permit, if when you go in the house, they don't have their trim up, or they don't have, you know, the floor is completely finished. If it's, I mean, that's not for us to decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as the footprint is completed by that time, then we are considering the building permit fine. It's another thing we're gonna have to look at whether we wanna keep that in there or not. But dwelling accessory buildings, where do we even allow those?
Generally not. I wasn't here for the residential, but generally,
Does dwelling accessory building mean you're living in an accessory building?
Yeah.
We've got more than one place around the county where people wanna live in sheds out back. They put electricity, some basic plumbing in there and make it a little house for the teenager to live in, because they can't stand them in the house. But honestly, that's what.
I believe it, I believe
We've
it.
had one of those, or, you know, or they have small, like mother-in-law suites that are a freestanding small building.
True.
This is not something that's very common or that you really. There are a lot of inherent issues with it in a place where there's not water and sewer, that's one. So, because the health department won't let you have 2 residences,
Right.
which that would be on one septic system. You can't put 2 septic systems on one lot. So, really, these are just, we're offering some people something here that is really not able to be done very easily. You do end up occasionally, though, with people putting dwelling units inside barns for grooms' quarters, caretakers' quarters. That's considered an agricultural use, and I don't think we can tell them no there. Also, the housing that's for migrant workers that have been, that was determined probably 30 years ago that that's an agricultural use. So I don't know that you really need something like this. That's where I went with that long-winded explanation.
So are you saying we could strike
Yeah,
the whole
I
thing?
might, yeah.
and then even if you do allow it, you just give it a zoning permit.
It's covered under other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are so many other things to look at other than just, it says here I can have one of these.
Take out
So you're
five.
gonna, how much you gonna take out of this?
The whole thing,
The whole
all of
thing.
5.
Is it worth keeping that section and doing the only way it's possible is through that agricultural deal, basically, or do you just
No.
take it out?
Do you really want people knowing that?
I just take it out,
It's a given.
just take it out.
It's
1 through 5?
It's become a problem in a lot of
just number five.
townships,
1 through 5,
with
okay.
the amount of people living in barns.
Okay.
Surprising, but it's true.
6, application for certificates. Application for certificates of occupancy shall be made in writing to the zoning inspector on forms furnished by that department. And such certificates shall be issued within 5 days after receipt of such application, if it is found that the building or structure or part thereof or the use of land is in accordance with the provisions of this resolution. If such certificate is refused for cause, the applicant therefore shall be notified of such refusal and cause thereof within the aforesaid 5-day period.
It wasn't me.
Was it going to?
They teach us these words in law school and expect us to think they're okay.
Again, to me, this goes back to how are we thinking of certificate of occupancy?
Yeah. You want to strike it?
Yeah,
If we don't
on
need it.
paperwork.
Section 1708, fees. Fees for inspection and the issuance of certificates or copies thereof required or issued under the provisions of this resolution may be collected by the zoning inspector in advance of issuance. The amount of such fees shall be established by the township trustees and shall cover the cost of inspection and supervision resulting from the enforcement of this resolution.
And we're
Does that
gonna-
seem standard?
Are we switching out certificates for permits?
Yep.
or-
Yeah, I think so.
I just don't like certificates.
The reason that we generally have this be just a tiny little section here and have it in the hands of the township trustees, this way they can alter it annually and review it at their annual end of the year meeting to see if they have to change any of these fees. They aren't part of this resolution. It's set up that they can set them, so we don't have to go through a whole amending process to change these.
Yep. It's 7:03. And on our last meeting, we can go for another hour, right?
I'm good for whatever you want to do.
It's okay with me.
I was joking more than anything. I assumed Cindy would shoot that down.
Nope, I can do whatever you need to do.
Where do we want to be? I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages left, basically. But last time I thought we had like 15 minutes and went for like another 45 minutes, so I'm not gonna push for it. People want to. How long is it gonna take? Like last time you thought we would get through all of this, which this is fine, and then you thought the
We
following
probably
meeting-
would have if we hadn't wasted so much time on stuff before we got into the book.
Right.
Because we did a lot of other things.
Yep.
That's why we kind of messed that up.
And that's okay. How long's the map gonna take next time? Cause you said.
Not that long.
So maybe it's smarter, and we're already gonna be covering a few other things out of the book, the adult entertainment that we gotta get, I don't know if there's gonna be any marijuana stuff that you're gonna be
I'm just
Yeah,
gonna do one,
pull it over. from
a
the
small
head.
section that says, by the pursuant to resolution, whatever the number is, adopted on the
Yep.
date that they adopted it, marijuana,
So-
and use that language is prohibited in Allen Township.
So if you don't think this is gonna take that long to finish out the book, and you don't think the map's gonna take that long, is that one meeting?
I think, yeah, I think it could be one meeting. The stuff that we have to do here, like, the severance clause, that's just standard
Right.
boilerplate, rights and remedies, each day a separate offense, fines, nuisance per se. The whole enforcement and penalties section is very just legal boilerplate. There's not a lot that's gonna be changing. Same way with, vested right and interpretation. We can discuss that to see if there's any of it that's not comfortable for you guys. Changes and amendments, that's something that's covered by statute. We can describe it here a little bit, but you're not gonna get to do a whole lot of changing. But we do need to learn it, and that's the whole point of why I think you need to take more time on it. Now zoning, Board of Zoning Appeals, that's gonna take a little bit more discussion. Because all the stuff that needs to be done for zoning, once it's adopted, gets split up with duties between you as a zoning commission board and the Board of Zoning Appeals. Chances are, and I've recommended this with some of the other townships in the past, that once you get zoning passed, take 1 or 2 members as they're rolling off the zoning commission and put them on the Board of Zoning Appeals. So you have somebody who has a good knowledge of the book on each board, and then that way you don't have one board that's completely cold, not have any idea what you guys were thinking, and you guys, and because you don't want you guys not being on the same page, because they can override you.
How many people on the Board of Appeals?
5.
So it's 5 and 5?
Yep. With the same staggered terms that are 5-year terms eventually. Usually they do any of the things that are, the duties that are interpreting what was being done are you guys. But the questions of things that are exceptions or, like variances, I think they go to the BZA.
Yeah.
I think they do.
I think so.
Or if you guys make a determination on something on a conditional use, then if you said no to me and I didn't like it, I appeal to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and they can review what you did and see if you actually followed the rules, and if you didn't, they can
Okay.
override you and force you to allow a permit. That's why I want somebody on both boards who has a really good working knowledge of what the thought process and what the intent is of the book. We're trying to make the intent very clear,
Right.
but any statute or resolution or ordinance, no matter how clear you make it, it's gonna be muddied by something.
Yep.
And we need somebody to know
Looks like Matt's making the official decision, we're done.
the.
Well,
Or at least he's got now.
Or he's
Yeah,
got-
he's got to pick up
Quickly
kids
before you
somewhere.
take off,
Yeah.
signage, did you,
I'll get that to you guys here. I don't think I'll be able to be here Thursday, I'm not sure. My wife's traveling all week, and that leaves me with the 3 boys and the end of the school year. I think there's a program Thursday evening
okay,
that I would need to attend, but I'll let you know. I meant to let you know last
No,
Thursday,
it's
but
fine. No big deal.
my day just flew by, and I was driving home, and I'm
I
like,
figured, yeah.
it was like 5:03, and I'm like, well, if I send Cindy an email now, she
I won't get it.
won't get it, so.
Yeah, no, it's no big deal.
is that something you can get to Cindy before the meeting, as far as being able to go over it? Or
I think so.
Cover it, okay.
Cindy, could you send me the Word version? Do you have a Word version of like the sign?
Sort of. I took the PDF and I converted it with Word. I've spent a lot of time fixing things that look funky, so I'll make sure that's as fixed as it can get and send it to you.
Okay. Or just send me the funky version and I'll go from there.
All of the M's are R's and N's, by the way.
Okay.
Good luck is what she said.
Yeah.
Any motion?
Oh,
ask you a question before you leave?
Yeah.
Circling back to ponds, and we talked about all these things, but in the city of Findlay, don't you have to have a pond if you have a parking lot? To
You have
catch
to-
the runoff, and do we need to address detention versus retention on ponds, especially in I-2, whatever, I don't know all the districts, but is that an issue where we need to look at that? And specifically, what if, say for example, there was an industrial entity that was taking water and flooding it into maybe an existing waterway through their process or something that would then maybe infringe upon a neighboring property?
That would be riparian water rights, which are surface water issues, and zoning doesn't really touch much on those. Those get to be private issues about
Civil
the
issue, yeah,
infringing on
civil.
each other with your surface water.
And then in terms of drainage, that there's no drainage standards in the county unless you're subdividing land. And then I think some townships are asking the county engineers to review for drainage, but I'm not sure what standard they're,
I don't know what they're doing.
I don't know. So there's no countywide, there's no countywide drainage. So if you had a mega factory come, unless they're subdividing, they don't have to meet any drainage standards, where the city has drainage
What if
standards.
it's not necessarily just drainage water? What if they are, for example, pumping it out of the ground or otherwise, and then using it for whatever their purpose is, and then dumping that
Well,
into the watershed, back on the surface of the watershed, but it came from, say, a city tap or even a well?
I mean, I don't
It's
know.
still riparian water at that point. If it starts running off your property on top of the ground to the neighbor, it's outside it's not something we really deal with zoning.
And what if you dig your own ditch to put it into an existing nature-made ditch?
Well, at some point, there's
That's again,
environmental
That's
regulations.
the whole soil and water kind of stuff, and
Okay.
EPA get involved.
So that's not necessarily a
I
zoning
don't
issue.
know of any, and doesn't mean there's not, but in general, there's no industrial facilities that I'm aware of that aren't connected to water and sewer.
Well,
I mean, just the,
somebody
just,
might want to take a trip over to Township Road 215 because there's equipment digging ditches right now that's being used for something, and there's no plan for it, but it's being tied into existing nature-made ditches.
Waterways,
It's happening today.
Yes. I
And
think I would call soil and water and ask them to go look at it.
We already did.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd they say?
where's 215?
Whirlpool Road,
Okay.
wind turbines.
You might call, one, you don't have zoning, and the county has no drainage standards. So,
Is it a safety thing though? I mean, what's going in there, because we're all on wells here. So at some point, if,
well, and, we get lots of calls about, sometimes you could call the city engineer, he might know what's going on. Jeremy Cow. So, we get a lot of calls, what's going on, and people are always like, they're doing the worst thing, and it's like, oh no, this is it's a clean out of this, or, just don't
Sure.
know.
sure, well, I think the point right here is we don't know.
Yeah.
So, until it's clear, there's concern, so.
Sure. At the same time, people have the right to move dirt and do things, even in zone townships, Just having a dozer out there doesn't mean you're doing something illegal.
For sure.
So, I have no idea what it is, but in my experience, I get a lot of upset people who call, we find out what it is, and it's usually nothing as bad as what they thought it could be. That's just my experience.
It's human nature.
It is.
Yeah,
And what's happening to your house,
Anticipate the
you're
worst.
even more sensitive, so.
for sure.
But I would call Jeremy Cow, he might be able to give you some information. But in terms of the detention ponds, at this point, I don't see, like for Sheets, we asked them to meet the city of Findlay standards voluntarily for drainage, but they didn't have to.
Even though they're being annexed.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that's not a good, most things, that's not,
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, so, but my point is, you know, something, it's a pet peeve of mine. We grill every home being built for their drainage. But a 250 acre factory with 700 parking spots has 0 drainage regulations. But a 2,000 square foot home, we will get you. So if you're not subdividing land, there's no drainage standards in the county. If you subdivide and make a subdivision, there are drainage standards in the subdivision regulations. So that's just, I don't know that a lot of people understand that. And we're going off on a tangent, but so,
but it's useful.
so. I don't know the township's authority, but, you know, it'd be more of a question for Doug K, I guess. Can the township adopt drainage standards? And that may be, who would enforce it? I don't know. That's a whole,
Depends, I guess, if the new ditches that are being built and draining into an existing ditch on the right of way, if it's going to cause the county or township problems, I think they do have an ability to do something about it. Because their entire function is to make sure there are roads that are well drained.
Yeah.
There's no water over them, that they're not dangerous. That's the only thing, actually, in township statute, that's the only thing they have to do, is roads.
I mean, the cities, I mean, the idea is to slow down the water to get it to the river. So you have 100 acres as a farm field, untiled, it percolates X amount of water. You then build a factory, you know, that detention pond, the water goes quickly to the pond and then goes out slowly so it doesn't all hit the river quickly. It drains it out over a 24 to 36 hour period. But that's just a lot of stuff. But I don't think we have to worry about detention ponds. I mean, most factories or bigger things would build them automatically because they have to meet EPA. Normally, detention ponds would be built because there's EPA water quality standards that require a detention pond for the settling of items. So, but it won't be nearly as big as what the drainage standards would say. So I'm getting way out of my expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Yep.
What is the best way to color in for the map? I mean, I have regular pencils, but do I want colored pencils? Do I want markers? What do I want to have here?
Whatever you're comfortable using. We may need to be moving things and changing things, so,
I'm guessing we're gonna need to like lay it out on the table.
before you start drawing on it, maybe use Post-it notes or
Yeah,
something to
yeah,
show
yeah.
the areas and then draw it in.
Okay, I'll make sure I bring.
Kind of wish we had a big laminated one so we could draw on it like
Dry
a dry
erase it
erase
off,
board.
Yeah,
And hopefully it'll have a scale, because like, that's one thing, that one doesn't have a scale. Hopefully it'll have a scale so we can.
The map is in there, I don't know
Oh.
if it does or
yeah,
not.
there's 3 separate ones and I have them on that foam board. So, I mean, if you wanna look
I'm
at
just
them.
curious, it would help to have a scale, because like when we start talking about things needing to be 1,000 feet apart, I'd like to know what's 1,000 feet on a map.
Right. Based on the 8.5 by 11s, there is a scale at the bottom. So, hopefully those do as well.
Just got them on the board.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Do we want to open up for questions? I think they've already probably hit them. Anybody have any questions? Already been brought up?
We're glad you came.
Yes.
It's always good to see you.
Okay. Next time we will finish up the book, hopefully. There's not too many pages left, and then hopefully look at the map.
I won't be able for this Thursday to have the, all those sections that we've already gone through ready for you guys to review with the lines and the red and all that.
Yep.
I've got a brief due on the Washington Township stuff by Thursday, so I'm going to not be able to put a ton of time into getting anything else together for this until Thursday, so.
So, what do you propose at that point? Like, when would you think you'd have it done at that point?
Probably by that next Monday meeting,
The next Monday?
yeah.
And then, what will that meeting consist of at that point if we get through the map? Is it gonna hand out the booklet and then adjourn? Or do we start going through it just
Maybe
as
just start
is?
going through it and see if there's anything that we already have dealt with, that we know how it's gonna be changed, and then,
So that would be the 20th, and then we would start going through it and finish going through it on the 23rd.
if we can't get all the way through it. There's not a lot, we're not gonna have to read the whole thing again, we're
It's
just gonna
just
have to
looking at-
skim through where the changes are. And I'm
Okay.
gonna give you guys copies that have line outs and red changes, so
So you think there's a chance that you would get done on the 20th even?
maybe, yeah, especially if we're willing to push for a little while and stay a
A
little
little
longer.
longer meeting if
Maybe we'll
necessary?
get it done.
Okay. Might be a good way to handle it. Okay. Anything else to discuss?
You wanna-
Do it, Deb. Do it, Deb.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
No,
Whoa,
somebody's gotta make the
I
motion.
need
Oh.
someone to make a motion.
I make a motion. to
Okay.
adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, I need a second.
I'll second.
Don't fight. Everyone in agreement, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion passed, we're adjourned.
I always have to fight the urge to
I-
vote yes.
I